Hobson. Give her a few minutes here. Let's see. Wait another minute here. See if someone hops in here. All right, well, I guess I'll just start kind of going into it, addressing it, and then when people coming in, maybe I'll refresh. But Mason Riggs here, new contributor to Zenny 62. A little background on myself. I went to San Diego State, graduated about 3 years ago, journalism media studies major. My entire life, very passionate about football, baseball, basketball, pretty much a sports enthusiast, very passionate. Seen every combine, big draft nut, fantasy football guy. And so let's just kind of get into it, I guess. Basically, a big signing, probably the biggest signing for the Raiders, was of Corey Littleton from the Los Angeles Rams. And he is a really good playmaker out there. How's it going, Juan? Good to see you out there. Let me know if you got any questions. You keep firing away, but I'm just going to kind of get into it. So Corey Littleton, really good playmaker, young there, 26 years old. Played at the University of Washington. Really was a playmaker, was undrafted. Signed a 3-year deal with the Raiders. Pretty reasonable price, if I'm not mistaken. 3-year, $35 million, it's been reported. To give you some context to the deal, it's more than Blake Martinez and Joe Schobert, which I think is fine. You know, he's been a little bit of a bigger playmaker than them for a little bit longer of a time. But it's less than Jalen Smith from the Cowboys or Quan Alexander got last year from the San Francisco 49ers. So he kind of fits in that good range where he got. He's a real plus coverage defender, used ideally by the Rams as guarding the center zone, watching slants, drag routes, those crossing routes. Was able to sit on those, made several plays. There's a couple plays that really stood out to me that I can just think off of broadcasts. They played what is the current team salary cap? Last I saw, I believe it is about $6 million after the NASA deal goes through. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But $6 million, that's not much wiggle room. That would mean that's pretty much the draft class. Now they could cut a guy like Gabe Jackson and free up $10 million. He is getting top 5 guard money. Some would argue, you know, he is deserving of that. Others would argue, maybe like myself, that, you know, he's been banged up the last couple of years, and Denzel Good, I believe, is making like 2.5 and filled in admirably. So they could free up some cap that way, but don't look for them to be adding a lot more. They're pretty much got, I believe, about $6 million left, and that's pretty much devoted to their free draft class. And that's something that we all should be very excited about. They got 5 picks in the top 100 or so, something like that. So good ammunition, as you all know. I'm sure 2 first-round picks, 3 in the third, so that's real exciting. But getting back to Corey Littleton, as I mentioned, a couple of big broadcasts that stood out to me is when I can think of a few plays. He played the Browns. They played the Browns early on, and he made a couple great plays in the screen game against Bradley Chubb. One was for PBU, and I believe one was for tackle with no game. So that was a really good play. And then later in the year, they played the San Francisco 49ers, and the Niners in the red zone. They had Kittle lined off at right tight end, and he was trying to hit a little seam route. Corey Littleton has his back to the quarterback on his back hip, trailing, and he's able to realize, Kittle's going up for the ball, and he puts his hand up and blocks it. Sunjoku says Littleton is a beast, one of the best cover linebacker in football. Yes, he is. And to give a little context to that, that is 100% right. According to Pro Football Focus, the Raiders last year allowed the second highest passer rating, their linebackers, when they were the primary target. On 155 pass plays, they only managed a 3.2 forced incompletion percentage, 25th in the league, while allowing 10 touchdowns with just 1 interception. That was all our linebackers last year. That was just not getting it done. So they went out and they got aggressive with Corey Littleton. That was great. Got some more stats for you to back up what Sun said as well. Made a great point. Plus coverage player. According to Pro Football Focus, Corey Littleton in 2019, minimum 300 snaps. Their rankings, they had him first among all defenders in tackling grades. I believe they said he missed less than 3% of his tackles combined over 18 and 19, which is just fantastic. Less than 3%, that's outstanding. Last year alone, he was first. They rated him 6th among linebackers in overall defense. So that, run, pass, which is awesome. 8th among linebackers in coverage. So really good coverage player, as we've mentioned. And 9th among linebackers in pass rushing. So a little bit of a, flexibility there, along with a guy like Nick Kwiatkowski, who I will touch on next. But to touch more on Corey Littleton, he's just a really good, smart player. And the other thing about him is he's a really good special teams player. He's not going to be playing that as primarily, because now he plays a lot of, going to be playing every down on defense. But he's got 4 blocked punts, kicks in his career. That is outstanding. I believe Ted Hendricks is the all-time leader with 10 in all-time history. So having 4 in your first, handful of years is really impressive. And some other stats, as I mentioned, the lack of playmaking from our linebackers last year. Over the last 3 seasons, he had 6 interceptions. All Raiders linebackers had 6 over the 5 of the last 6. So just really not getting it done. Over the last 2 years, Corey Littleton has had 22 passes defended, 5 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, along with 7.5 sacks. So really just a playmaker from there. Corey Littleton, really excited about it. And, going into free agency, I wasn't so sure we were really going to target him. Through Gunther's history, he hasn't really prioritized, paying linebackers premium so much, and especially coverage linebackers. So after the first few days, when there wasn't a whole lot of news that we were going after him, I was kind of nervous. So when we were able to secure Corey Littleton, I was ecstatic. And that was awesome. And I'm going to need a drink here, guys. Sorry. Get some water. So really, Corey Littleton, special teams player, not going to be doing that a whole lot, but situationally with us, I believe he hasn't missed a game in the last 2-3 years. Really reliable, smart guy, plus coverage player, astounding. Now, the next big signing, I believe most impactful, is Nick Kwiatkowski. Maybe a lot of people don't know who he is. He is from West Virginia, recruited originally as a safety, moved to linebacker, I believe, late in his freshman year, but a really good player at West Virginia. And a little summary from some of his stats of what I got off of ESPN. So outside of his rookie year, he has looked like a starting caliber off-ball linebacker in the NFL when given the opportunity to be on the field. Since 2017, Kwiatkowski has produced a Pro Football Focus grade that ranks him among the 15th best off-ball linebackers. Now, he will be playing Mike, I'm assuming, for the Raiders, so that's a bit of a transition, but he's played everywhere. He was the main fill-in player for the Bears the last 2 years at linebackers, and they run a 3-4, so they have 2 inside backers. He played both of those, even filled in a little bit on the outside when needed. And then he is one of 6 players who has produced a 70-plus grade as a run defender, as a pass rusher, and in coverage over that span. He has generated the 9th most WAR per snap over that stretch too. So basically, since 2017, Pro Football Focus has him as a really good linebacker contributor when given the opportunity. So a young player, 26, made all kinds of plays last year. The greatest in coverage, but has a pretty good feel, can read the quarterback's eyes, similar to Corey Littleton. And, he's going to make plays, and he's only going to grow as a player, I would imagine. So last year, he started 8 games. He gave up a 59.5 completion percentage against him, 66 quarterback rating versus him, 4 pass breakups, 1 interceptions. He had 3 sacks on only 22 blitz opportunities. That's an insane rate. So right away, you get a guy that can make some plays in the blitz game. And shout out to Ted Nguyen on Twitter. You can check him out. He posted an all 22 clip of Nick Kwiatkowski against the Green Bay Packers, and what he's lined up in the double A gap. So similar to what Paul Guenther runs, what you'll see Mike Zimmer run, and that's when the 2 inside linebackers and the nickel. So 3 corners and 2 safeties on the field, 2 linebackers, 40 linemen. The 2 real good free agency. Yes, great free agency acquisitions, Louis. I'm going to go through them. Just touched on Littleton, going through Nick Kwiatkowski. The highlight play that I said Ted Nguyen had is he lined up in the double A gap, and he comes on a little bit of a delay. So he's lined up to the left side of the center. The linebacker on the right A gap comes, so the center guards him. As soon as Kwiatkowski recognizes that, he jumps the gun. Aaron Jones, who is a stud running back, really nicely built, steps up in that A gap, trying to protect Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is dropping back, and Kwiatkowski annihilates him, sets him up, jacks him off the ground, and sets him in Aaron Rodgers' lap. So that is a little formation that Paul Guenther loves to use, and there's an absolute highlight play of it. Look it up on Ted Nguyen's Twitter. He has a little clip of it. It's a real awesome player, real head hardy, Gruden grinder type of player, smart guy. There's another play where he forces safety and against the Minnesota Vikings, I believe, a really good run team, fills the hole, gets Dalvin Cook for safety. So he's a really good player, and they got him at a really reasonable price. So Nick Kwiatkowski is a real impactful signing. So with those two, they really made one of their biggest weaknesses with their linebacking core into maybe their biggest strength on defense, which is really exciting. They're still looking for probably one to play as a strong side linebacker, but they're bringing it back. Morrow, it appears, who's a plus coverage player, give him that defined role. And I'd expect them to target a linebacker probably in the 3rd round now, try to find a good value after the 3rd round. But getting those 2 signings really influence us to have flexibility in the draft. The Raiders, excuse me, not us, but the Raiders. And yeah, Nick, real good sleeper. I'm really excited about it. I just kind of touched on him, a real Gruden grinder. Just really, really excited about it. And then let's see. If I want to go next on the list, I'm going to touch on Maliek Collins. So Maliek Collins is another young player. You see the theme that's building here. We're really addressing young players in this free agency class, which is real exciting. Now, we were only able to get Maliek Collins, I believe, on a 1-year deal, but still very young and a really good pass rusher. Flashed a lot last year. Maybe not the biggest name that we all know. We all think of Lawrence and Van Der Esch and Smith and, formerly Byron Jones on their defense. But really, Maliek Collins was a force in there. And, let's kind of get into him and how he'd really established himself. So he went to Nebraska, just north of 300 pounds. Now, he is a 3 technique, guys. So what that means is he aligns on the outside shoulder of the offensive guard in the B gap, shades his outside shoulder, so to the side shoulder towards the edge of the lineman, to the guard and the tackle. And he's responsible for one gap, that gap, and he's a penetrator. So you got to be real quick off to get off, and that's what he is. Maliek Collins, really good get off. And Pro Football Focus, gave him a 77.7 pass rush grade, which is eighth among all interior linemen. So Pro Football Focus had him, as a top 10 interior pass rusher. Really nice. They gave him 48 pressures, 11th among all defensive linemen with minimum 50% snaps. So really outstanding there. I saw a tweet of an infographic from ESPN.com, and they listed the highest pass rush win rate as a defensive tackle. And I'm going to go through the top five. So number one was Aaron Donald at 24%, Grady Jarrett at 22%, Chris Jones, who we all know the record from Kansas City, was at 19%. And then the new Las Vegas Raider himself, Malik Collins, was fourth at 16% pressure rate. So fourth highest out of all defensive tackles. So really just a player that real quick get off, powerful hands, can bull rush quite a bit, and he's got a patented spin move that I'm about to talk on. Just need a drink of water, sorry. So his best, rarest move is his explosive spin move from the interior. He loses guards. He takes a hard outside step to the outside shoulder, and then he spins back to the inside a lot. And man, it is a force. And it's really rare, guys. It's really rare what he can do. There's maybe only one defensive tackle in the league that really can do it right now, and his name is Aaron Donald. So this guy is a freak. I'm not saying he is Aaron Donald, obviously, but he's got some rare ability. You can look up on Twitter. You can probably just search him right now, trending Malik Collins, scroll through your feed, and you will see this move from an all-22 perspective. There's clips everywhere, but just really explosive get off. He can bulldoze people, but that spin move is something special, and we're going to see it, and it's going to be awesome. He looks like the Tasmanian devil out there. It's really something to behold, to see a 300-pound man do that. So Malik Collins, a real special athlete. That was a huge signing to improve our defense. And then, one of our biggest needs was cornerback, folks. And from all reports, we were real aggressive. We tried to line Byron Jones from the Dallas Cowboys. It didn't work out. Tried to get Chris Harris from our rival AFC West. No. The Los Angeles Chargers. And, it kind of hurts a little bit. I don't know. It hurt me. I wanted Chris Harris. I really did. And, I saw some report today that he mentioned, the Raiders were pretty set on Joyner working slot, and that's where he wanted to work. And, that was one of the main reasons why he chose them over us. So that's kind of a big deal. So he struck out on corner relatively, but I think we kind of made a sneaky, quiet good move. Eli Apple, a guy that was overdrafted in my opinion. I think he went 10th overall to the New York Giants. But another young guy, 24 years old, maybe coming off his best season, and has all the measurables in the world, though. 6'1", 200 pounds, 31 3/8 arms, which is, 31-inch arms, which you're looking from a long press corner potentially. 31-inch arms plus. You really want that to reach in, to break up the ball. So arm length is huge. From corners, I believe 31 inches is Mike Mayock's threshold about. So 31 3/8 is plenty. 4'4", 40. I remember specifically in the combine, he made a sick one-handed snag in the DB drills. So that probably helped his stock, I'm sure. But he got overdrafted and, had a rough couple years in New York. Landon Collins referred to him as a cancer, all kinds of problems. But over the last year and a half of the season, he was with the New Orleans Saints, and he was good enough to, get it done and start on a playoff caliber team, and he was opposite a legit number one corner, Marshawn Lattimore. So not the sexiest player, but maybe coming off his, best 2-year stretch with the Saints, coming off a playoff team. And some promising stats, I would say, in the 15 games he's been with the Saints, he has only given up 5 touchdowns, according to Pro Football Reference. So serviceable player on a playoff team, young player. So after striking on Chris Harris and Byron Jones, I think it was a pretty adequate addition. 1-year deal, limited risk. And then, more free agent acquisitions. Not a big addition by any means down on the list, but Jeff Heath was added from the Dallas Cowboys. He's got experience at strong safety, free safety. Most of us probably remember him as the one that caused the forced fumble at Derek Carr on the touchback in Oakland Coliseum. Jeff Heath caused that. So real hustle player, great special teams player, which is key. I think that's why he was really brought in. Rich Bisaccia is the Raiders special teams coordinator, and he is from the Dallas Cowboys. So I believe they got him for about $2 million, a little bit more with incentives from playing time. So real cheap, friendly deal, and a real special teams flexibility at strong and free safety, which we kind of need. We have one starting safety position kind of open right now. Abram's going to slide in, hopefully at strong safety. So, with his injury history, it's good to have a guy like Jeff Heath, and he's got some real experience playing special teams for Rich Bisaccia. So, underrated signing there. Other than that, that's the big signings on defense. We can talk more about offense if you want, draft prospects. Any questions in the comment feed, guys? You guys got anything? Any thoughts? Let me know. If not, I think that's about it. I'll be coming back with another video here shortly. Maybe talking about, draft approach and whatnot. I'll wait another minute here to see if I get any comments in the section, any questions. Do you think that Nelson Agholor is a 1, 2, or 3 or bench wide receiver? Nelson Agholor. So I know a lot of people have a lot of hate towards Nelson Agholor. Made that big drop, game winner in prime time last year. But I saw an interesting tweet. Thanks, son. Joku, appreciate it. It'll be coming out more. But an interesting tweet I saw is he actually has a friendlier drop percentage than one Amari Cooper over his career. So yes, one that has struggled with drops, but overall, it's not the biggest in the world. He's a good route runner. In college, he was lined up everywhere, punt returner. I think that's where you're immediately going to see him for the Raiders. That's how he's really going to secure a job, is he's going to have to be a punt returner, make plays. But if you look at his numbers over the last few years, it is by far good enough to make the Raiders roster compared to our receivers. Let's just remember we had Trevor Davis starting out, and 2 tight end sets out there, the only receiver out there, and he's not on a team anymore. So Nelson Agholor is by far locked to make the team, but I expect him to make the team at this point, looking at the depth chart right now. And addressing the wide receiver position, look for the Raiders to get 2 wide receivers in the draft, in my opinion. In the first round, there's a lot of risk in that. How the board falls, there looks to be 3 elite, receivers right there, potentially Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, or CeeDee Lamb. But we all know the history of first-round receivers in the last decade. I believe there's only been 3 or 4 that have gone over 1,000 yards the rookie year. So real slim pickings on finding success out the gate as rookies. So Mike Mayock alluded to that in his combine press conference, if I'm not mistaken. So if I had any thoughts on who they would be leaning to at 12, based off of kind of what they look for and what they see in the division, I would look for them at number 12 to really look at both Alabama wide receivers first. Coming from more of a pro-style offense, Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs has had a lot of comparisons to Tyreek Hill and his explosiveness. Jerry Jeudy's a great route runner, JB says. Jerry Jeudy reminds me of Marvin Harrison. That's who he reminds me of. He's got those skinny kind of chicken legs, but that quick suddenness, great route runner. Sneaky after the catch. He reminds me of Marvin Harrison. But yeah, so from combine, comments about, receivers looking towards the sideline and relaying stuff and having to know complicated offense. If we're going to pick a receiver at 12, I would expect him to come from the University of Alabama, just for more of that system. And my thought initially is JB's right. Jerry Jeudy is a stud. polished out there. One concern I kind of have is a lot of his yards come from the slot, and that's not to his fault. That's where he's lined up, and I can't blame Alabama for setting it up like that. He's a great route runner. You get a two-way go out of the slot. And then they had that pure speed with Henry Ruggs on the outside and Devontae Smith on the outside. Or the other receiver, can't remember his name right now. Jalen Waddle, another electric guy. So with all that speed, I mean, to put that on the outside and leave your route runner in the center. But with how that concerns me with the Raiders is we already have a phenomenal slot receiver in Hunter Renfrow. I think Jerry Jeudy is plenty capable of playing on the outside, but that's just a little concern there. And struggle to get off press here and there against bigger corners. If you watch against South Carolina, they have a couple of risers in next year's draft, long press corners that kind of gave them some fits. But a sweet player, probably the best route runner since probably Amari Cooper, from Alabama. No coincidence there. Hard worker, works out with Antonio Brown from the Jupiter, Florida area, if I'm not mistaken. So Jerry Jeudy's a stud. But the other option is who I kind of touched on is Henry Ruggs. And, being in the AFC West, there's no one that knows what it's like to have Tyreek Hill in that division than the Raiders. And the one thing that Jerry Jeudy, Philip Dorsett, Sung Tio, JB, Terrell Owens is a great player, but physical body type a little different. As I said, I think more of a Marvin Harrison, who is a Hall of Famer. Check out some Marvin Harrison, kind of similar body types, proven route runner. T.O. was just a man among boys out there. Philip Dorsett, that is way, way too low for Jerry Jeudy, in my opinion. He is at least going to be a slot receiver, chain mover out there. Floor is a poor man's Cooper Kupp, in my opinion, for Jerry Jeudy. Just understands in route running off the get-go, working in thirds. So that would mean, if a guy's lined up and press, you're going to take a one step to the left, right, and then on that third fake, he's going to lean normally. That's Cooper Kupp talks like that. And Jerry Jeudy is really adequate at that. Fantastic route runner. So I would kind of push back there and say his ceiling is, of a Marvin Harrison, and his floor is a poor man's Cooper Kupp. And that's Jerry Jeudy. Now, Henry Ruggs, this is what Henry Ruggs does, folks, out there. He makes you have two defenders on him always, or your fastest DB on him, and he's got to be a stud. That's what Henry Ruggs provides. He doesn't have to catch the ball to have an impact. So that's what's special about him in his respect. He runs a 4.3, sub 4.3 40. You got to have a safety over the top all the time. And when you have to have that, it makes it really predictable as an offense to know what the defense is going to have to do. And guess what? If they don't, you burn them. You hit them over the top. Or if they're playing too far back because they only got a man on them, you hit them with a quick slant or skinny post. Quick slant against South Carolina, he had ticket to the house, 82 yards untouched. See you later. Hey, how's it going? Change the game. See if I have some stuff on him in front of me. I don't. See if I can check my feed. But on Twitter, I want McKinnon from Alabama as safety is crazy. Him and Abram would be ridiculous. Son, he is ridiculous. Now, this is my only concern with that. He is more of an in-the-box safety, similar to Abram. I think he's got a little bit more flexibility than an Abram. He played in the deep half early on in his career. But if you look at the 2019 tape, Xavier McKinney was basically used as a weak side linebacker, which is awesome. He's a matchup piece. He's one of the most flexible players out there. He really is. And I really like him. Just for me, in making a marriage with Abram, I want someone who can play single high, can play that cover 3 and have range potentially. So the elite of the elite would be like an Earl Thomas and an Ed Reed, which is, obviously crazy. So if I was looking at draft prospects kind of like that, what's his face? Oh my God, what's his name? God, I can't remember. Winfield Jr., excuse me. That's fair. I'd scare teams. It would scare teams. He's a beast. And I'm not saying we wouldn't take him or we shouldn't. You just have to look back further in tape, 2018, and see him when he was more in that true safety role. Because as I mentioned, they had a lot of injuries at linebacker this year. Dylan Moses went out early, and he basically filled in as a weak side linebacker, but really good player. I think he's definitely coming out a little bit more well-rounded in the passing game than a Jonathan Abram, but very similar as a heat-seeking missile. But in this draft, if I was looking for more of a single high safety, Grant Delpit. If you watch Grant Delpit's 2018 tape, man, it is top 5, top 10 pick worthy. It is something to behold. He's got the ability. He can also play down low, play on man. His 2019 tape is something else. Really hesitated throwing his with tackling, but really just a smart player out there. And he kind of reminds me of a Derwin James, where his junior years he kind of took a step back. He fell in the draft. People didn't really know, is he a linebacker, weak side linebacker, is he a corner, is he a safety, strong safety, and he ended up doing it. So Delpit would be out there, and then Antoine Winfield. I don't know if you guys have. Thank you, JB. Antoine Winfield is a beast. He is my Nasir Adderley of this class. He is the dude. Flashes, makes plays everywhere. The only thing you got to worry about him is injury concern and the lack of size. As we've seen a guy like Carl Joseph really struggle with these big tight ends. And as you've heard Mike Mayock say, you got to play, build your team to beat your division. And in our division, in Raiders division, there's nothing but big tight ends and matchup pieces everywhere. So the only thing that concerns me with an Antoine Winfield Jr., who's a ball hawk, is injury concern and lack of size. I believe he has about 30-inch arms, if not less. I could even look it up. I'll check him out, but no more little safeties. Yes. Hey, son, you check him out. Antoine Winfield Jr., his dad, former All-Pro. You probably remember him from the Minnesota Vikings forever. Stud. Antoine Winfield Jr. is a stud. So him, Grant Delpit, those guys are probably, late 1, early 2. He changed exactly. Thank you, JB. A playmaker, a couple picks, outstanding. He's also a plus kick returner. Real heady. He finds every tipped ball. Just a real heady, smart player. You can tell he grew up, from an NFL player. His dad, Antoine Winfield, taught him everything, and taught him to be a beast out there. His highlight tape is something special. And then a local kid, Ashton Davis, a track star from Cal. He got hurt, wasn't able to participate in the combine, but he's a hitter, got tremendous range, a real riser. Track background, big hitter, play on the ball. So those would be some of the free safeties. And then the big risers, the young guys, a Jeremy Chin from not Lehigh, that's Duggar. But Jeremy Chin out there, Hall of Fame bloodlines, plays everywhere. He blew up the combine. You can check him out. Another one would be Kyle Duggar from Illinois University. Great at the combine. Big guy. So him and Jeremy Chin could also potentially be that. So it's not that I don't like McKinney. It's just when you're building a team, you want kind of variety in your safeties. And if it's me, I want Jonathan Abram on underneath coverage zone and attacking the line of scrimmage. So I want a pure coverage guy potentially would be ideal. So Delpit, Winfield Jr., Ashton Davis from Cal, Jeremy Chin or Kyle Duggar would be some safeties. And that'd be the tight ends we play against are 6'2", 240. Yep, need size and speed, 100% right there. And that's why I think, at pick 19, you can see us maybe go get a McKinney and Son suggested, who is a tremendous player. Would be fine, I'm sure. You just have to watch his 2018 tape. As I mentioned, 2019, more of a weak guy player. But at 19, you could get him or Delpit, or you drop back and you gain more capital. We don't have a second-round pick because of the Khalil Mack trade. We have 3/3. But to be able to capitalize in the draft, you need draft picks everywhere because you don't know who's going to slide. So, I would expect the Raiders, unless, 2 home runs that they really are in love with fall to them, they're gonna try to trade back and to acquire a second round pick. So that'd be bet 19, and then you can look for safety there. Do you think the Raiders might go with Taysom Hill, Bryce Perkins? I saw something about Taysom. Would you drop back 19 and get a second? Yeah. So mentioning on Taysom Hill, Bryce Perkins. So Taysom Hill is a player for the Saints out of BYU, and he is a real unique player. I mean, he is 6'4", I think, 230. And Bryce Perkins ain't no joke either, from the University of Virginia, a real playmaker. And you know what? I could see that. In the red zone, to have that dual threat player, by having a quarterback run with the ball, you gain an extra blocker. Your running back can block. So it's going to be a trend. You see Jalen Hurd, Bryce Perkins, as previously mentioned, definitely would be someone like that. Tyree Jackson out of Buffalo last year was undrafted. He played for the XFL Defenders. You could look for him to get a shot. He's about 6'8". Those guys that can fall forward, use their legs a little bit, it's going to be a trend. And Taysom Hill trend is for real. Similar to kind of the Wildcat, I could look for teams, looking for that player, that gadget player. I could look for the Raiders to do it this year with Marcus Mariota. They struggled big time, putting the ball in the end zone last year. They moved the ball like crazy, but, I could see some Marcus Mariota packages, to add a little threat. You gain an extra blocker by having your running back be able to block. So I think that is a factor. And as Son mentioned, I would definitely expect the Raiders to try to get a second round pick, or at least more capital at some point, whether that's trading Gabe Jackson or if they can trade a LaMarcus Joyner potentially. They're going to want more capital, because you want picks through a variety of ranges. That way you can capitalize on people falling and really get value out of the draft. And as this draft class falls, it's really deep. And there's a lot of second-round receivers, safeties, and corners that could be valuable assets for the Raiders. So, yes, I would expect the Raiders to try to move back from 19 potentially and try to get, a second and a third and, really stockpile up. What do you think? Really's coming back? I honestly, I just don't know if that's really what they're trying to do. Gunther is famous for running a cover 3, but if you look at how they drafted last year, they want long corners that played press man, and that's what they say they're looking for. And Worley is more of a zone player. Now, I do think there is a chance because, he is made plays for us. It is a tough one. But, as of right now, I would think Eli Apple would be slated ahead of him as the opposite corner. He kind of fits the mold right now. So I think as of right now, they kind of chose Eli Apple over Worley. There's still time. But kind of speaking on that, Worley's zone corner too slow. Yeah. Just a zone corner. I think they're really trying to get the press man. And Isaiah Johnson, 32-inch arms, Mullen 31-inch plus arms. That's about the threshold you look for press corners. That's 31 plus inch arms. Worley doesn't really fit that. So there's a chance he does come back, but I wouldn't call it very high right now. And I would look for the Raiders to definitely draft a safety and a corner in the draft, 100%. And probably 2 receivers. You can book it now. Also, interior offensive line for sure. Incognito is definitely, on his older side. Joseph hurt my heart. Yeah, I'm a big Carl Joseph fan. Seth Roberts is a good receiver, 1 year, $3.75 million. Yeah, Seth Roberts was a touchdown machine for us for 1 year, but honestly, I think that path kind of moved on. And, they got Aguilar. They got Tyrell Williams. They got Renfro. Then they drafted number, 1 receiver in this year's draft, I'm sure. So they're going to be fine. But alluding back to, Carl Joseph, for example, and Worley, Tier Whitehead, look at all the change we had, all the players we lost from, offense and defense this past year. There's only three players that got picked up so far. Carl Joseph, 1 year deal. Taylor Whitehead, 1 year deal. That's it, I'm pretty sure. Two players out of all the players we lost. That just kind of shows, honestly, how lack of talent at the bottom of the roster was and how ineffective they were for the Raiders. So, the big take from free agency, I would say, is they made one of their weaknesses their strong points. Linebacker was a joke, atrocious last year. Now it's probably our strongest unit on defense. And, I look for them to add a third rounder, if not another pick later, to add to that room. Any other question, guys, before I take off? I'm willing to stay more, but just kind of out of a little bit of ideas right now. So I'm willing to go with some questions. But other than that, I'm really excited about those linebackers, and I'm excited for the draft, and hopefully the world improves and everything gets going, and they keep going. Aguilar might excel in a West Coast offense. Hasn't been this since where he blew up. 100%. And Nelson Aguilar played everywhere at USC. Big time punt returner. They should bring in Xavier Rhodes. Hopefully Jerry Jeudy at 12 if CeeDee Lamb speed. Okay, so I'm trying to read these fast. So Xavier Rhodes, I would not mind them bringing him in as a free safety. He's been a really good tackler at the corner position, but he's lost his foot speed, and it's evident. But the good news is he's played for Mike Zimmer, so he knows the system. So I would not mind Xavier Rhodes, bring him into camp, let him see what he does at free safety. Obviously, that depends on what we do in the draft, the Raiders do in the draft. But yeah, Xavier Rhodes. And I don't know who mentioned something about CD, that last comment. I kind of touched on it earlier. At 12, I would expect the Raiders to have both Alabama receivers ahead of CeeDee Lamb based off of Mike Mayock's comments at the Combine and kind of preferences and what they have in their division. Jerry Jeudy's an elite route runner and comes from more of a pro style. This was cool. Yeah, keep it going. Okay, I'll keep it going, son. I'm willing to keep going. I just need to keep going with the comments. But Jerry Jeudy, pro style offense. So immediately that checks a box. Route runner. Kind of downside of him is played a lot from the slot, and that's kind of run throw spot. And then the other guy would be Henry Ruggs, 4.3 speed. I think 3 drops in his career. Absurd rate. Guys that run 4.3, do not. Usually can't catch. They can't catch a cold, to be honest. So, a handful of drops in his career. It's amazing. Going back to last year's tape, you can watch Henry Ruggs versus LSU. Check it out. I believe the first or second drive, he catches a slant, and Tua Tagovailoa throws it way behind him, and he straight Odell Beckham's it, brings it in. Sweet snag. Big first down. Later on the drive, it's a post route in the end zone for a touchdown. He's on press man, and he, attacks the vulnerable hip of the corner. So that'd be the outside, backside hip of the corner. As he's coming up, he's attacking the left side of the corner, stems him. So the corner has to respect that, and he comes inside, makes a beautiful catch in the end zone, and takes a well up from Grant Delpit in 2018. So I think those two would be ahead of CeeDee Lamb. I don't know that for a fact, but that's just kind of my my vibe from what I saw from the excuse me, I'm adjusting the live chat, from the Combine comments and what I know based off of Mayock. I would think that they would lean towards a Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs. They see what he's done for Kansas City. And Henry Ruggs, as I touched on earlier, his selling point is you better have 2 players on him always. What that means is a corner and a safety over the top. If you don't have the safety over the top, well, then you must be playing 10 yards off. And if you're playing 10 yards off, I'm running a slant route to him, and he can catch it and take it 85 yards like he did against South Carolina this year. So, yeah, I think Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy would be ahead of CeeDee Lamb at 12. That's just my opinion. And I'm not taking a low shot, a big shot here, but just kind of think about it, guys. When's the last big-time successful Oklahoma receiver in the NFL? Marquise Brown had some success last year. Definitely explosive player, very fast, but kind of complete opposite of a CeeDee Lamb. I'm not saying I think CeeDee Lamb will be great. especially if he goes to San Francisco, for example. If CeeDee Lamb goes to San Francisco 49ers, he will be a beast. I'm telling you right now. In that offense, CeeDee Lamb will be a beast. All those crossing routes, those huge windows from the running game, CeeDee Lamb will be a beast in that. But he never played press man in the Big 12. I don't think they have corners in the Big 12 except for Gladney from TCU, who's an option for the Raiders at 90 potentially. He's got huge arms, 32-inch and a quarter, I'm pretty sure. Hunter Renfrow is the GOAT, and the fact that you guys got him in the 100 is unbelievable. 100%. He really is. When was it? 2017 national championship. He torched Minkah Fitzpatrick. He won the national championship, him and Deshaun Watson. He torched, I repeat, torched Minkah Fitzpatrick. Check out those highlights. I believe it was 2017. Let me see those other comments here. Do I have any more? Okay. Ruggs is the one here in comparison. Bob Moon, he says CeeDee Lamb. As I mentioned, I think he'd be third on the Raiders list at 12. But if he goes to the Niners, you mark my words, he will be a stud, 100%. CeeDee Lamb CeeDee Lamb would be perfect for the Niners. But Hunter Renfrow, check out that tape. I believe 2017 national championship, torched Minkah Fitzpatrick, won the national championship for them. Chad Packin says Ruggs is the one I'm hearing comparison to Tyreek Hill for his speed, right? 100%. He ran a sub 4.3 at the combine and was not happy. And I believe him that he can run sub 4, even faster than that, sub 4.25, 4.25, I believe. There's electronic timing report saying that he did at Alabama. You know, they changed the combine time to late in the evening. Guys were standing in line for hours, just kind of different. So I firmly believe, yes, he can run 4.25 and Tyreek Hill comparisons for sure. And the big thing about him that really makes him special, as I mentioned, I believe only like 3 or 4 drops in his career, just sure-handed as all can be, which is really rare from a guy that runs sub 4.3. Usually they can't catch a cold. So yeah, Henry Ruggs I think would be there, you know, him or Judy at 12 over CeeDee for the Raiders. But as I mentioned, CeeDee Lamb is a stud. You get him in that Niners offense, crossing routes, he will tear it up. Any more questions, guys? Any more thoughts, topics? Raiders, NFL? I got something. So talking on free agency a little bit. Combine season is lying season, folks. So don't believe everything you read. And people are ultimately trying to raise draft trade aspects of their players they have. Take it back last year. Josh Rosen is our guy. No, Kyler Murray's your guy. Take it to this year. Matt Rule, new coach of the Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton's my guy. Can't wait to work with him. I'm excited. What just happened? Couldn't find a trade partner. They released him. You know, ultimately, it's about trying to raise the volume of their trade stock. So it's lying season out there. And, you know, all those reports about maybe not interested in this prospect or all this or that, ultimately, usually that information is getting leaked to affect, you know, stock here or there. Any more questions, guys? Any more thoughts, comments? Questions about a prospect? I can go on. I can pretty much tell you anything about a lot of prospects. You guys got any questions? Give you another minute. Been live now for 48 minutes. It's been fantastic, guys. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the communication through the chat. You guys have made it a real pleasurable experience. I'll wait here another minute here to see if you guys say anything. Before I wrap up, give you a little background on myself, I guess. Avid sports enthusiast, Raider fanatic, Warriors, basketball, baseball, I could talk it all. Fantasy sports fanatic, maybe I'll do some of those coming up, you know, later, you know, when it becomes relevant. Graduated from San Diego State, journalism, media studies. Real passion. I expect to be doing videos almost every day, to be honest. I'm going to be really active on this. And a lot of sports talk from me. That's kind of my avenue. Other than that, any other questions, topics? I appreciate you all being very conversational in the chat. It's been awesome. And I think I'm going to wrap it up. So thanks, guys. You can catch me on Twitter at Mason Riggs, trying to pick up my activity there. And as I mentioned, I'll be active on this YouTube channel moving forward, Zenny62. So heavy sports content coming. Thanks, guys. Bye.